Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves. Hey, all you minties, Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions, and welcome to your overview of the WildC.A.T.S Compendium from DC Comics. So let's go ahead and take a look at what's exactly collected in this book. And welcome back, everybody. So here we have the latest DC Compendium, and it is WildC.A.T.S Compendium One. Love seeing the one there. Hopefully there'll be more volumes later on. And this has been previously released in a series of trade paperbacks, but not really fully collecting it the way that it should have been done. It has been released in a big, beautiful Absolute Edition, and especially, this is amazing if you love the work of Jim Lee. But yes, this is the other way it's been released in a bigger format. And of course, what I wanted to do was compare it to another compendium. So this is a compendium. It's smaller than your Omnis. It's smaller than your Absolute Editions. As a matter of fact, it is the trim size of a trade paperback or single issue, as you can see here. Exact same height and length. Of course, that book being a lot thicker. Well, they're also using different paper stock too. And there's a lot more pages in this one. This has, oh my gosh, I think this is only about 500 pages, whereas the WildC.A.T.S Compendium has like 914 pages. So let's actually compare it again to a previously released compendium. This is the Lobo Compendium. Both of them soft covers, and you saw the trim size. Here's the spines. Both of them retailing for $59.99. As a matter of fact, I think that's how much all the compendiums are from DC, depending on... Yeah, I guess it doesn't matter how thick or thin it is. But just to see the backs here. Yeah, and sure enough, it is... Oh, upside down. $59.99. So it is a soft cover. So I'll just go ahead and tell you. It is glued binding. And we'll look at the paper stock together here in a little bit. And there's no dust jacket. It's just a soft cover with the art on board. So let's go ahead and open this compendium up and showcase this artwork and look at the storylines collected in here and the creative teams. Yes, WildC.A.T.S Compendium. What does CAT stand for? You have Lee, Choi, Robinson, and Charest, and the DC logo. Okay, now let's get it opened and talk about the stories collected in here and look at this artwork and see if there's any extras. Okay, let's go ahead and get this compendium open. Here is your title page, WildC.A.T.S Compendium 1, Jim Lee, Scott Williams, and Alex Sinclair. Collection cover artist, and created by Jim Lee and Brandon Choi. Cyberforce created by Mark Silvestri, because Cyberforce does make an appearance through here. Here's your table of contents. I love the fact that issue number 0 that came with the trade paperback is untitled. And also this one here, the WildC.A.T.S Covert Action Teams number 17. But the rest of them do have a title, including the source books right there. So we do kick it off with WildC.A.T.S number 0. So this collects WildC.A.T.S 0 through 13, and then 15 through 20, WildC.A.T.S Special number 1, WildC.A.T.S Trilogy 1 through 3, and I mean, it would make sense if there is 3 of them, right? Or why would there be 4 WildC.A.T.S Trilogy? WildC.A.T.S Source Book 1 and 2. The Team 1, WildC.A.T.S 1 and 2. Team 1, Stormwatch 1 and 2. And then Cyberforce 1 through 3. Now, that is the second series of Cyberforce. The book has 914 pages and retails for $59.99. So, the story of WildC.A.T.S... Actually, I don't really want to talk about issue number 0 because I feel like issue number 0 should have been kept until after issue 4. This came with the trade paperback that collected the first 4 issues, and it's kind of a setup for that first issue, but I like where the first issue just throws you into the whole mystery. This explains a little bit about these characters, a little too much, that the mystery's kind of gone from that first issue. So what I will say is we are introduced at the very beginning to the character of Void, having a flashback as to how she got her powers. So you do get to find out a little bit about Adriana before she became Void. We also meet other characters like Spartan right here, who's this cybernetic being. And the more you read about it, the more you'll find out that the body keeps coming back while the conscience or I guess the memories are downloaded to different bodies. We have this gentleman right here. This is kind of our team leader, or it's hard not to compare this to X-Men. But Lord Emp, Jacob Merlot, he's the lord of this alien race, and we'll talk about that here in a second, who's lived a long time. We have this character of Maul. Maul is the tank of the team. He's the big guy, but he's also the smart guy. So he kind of reminds me a little bit of the character of Sasquatch. But the bigger he gets, the dumber Jeremy Stone gets. He's like a human titan type of character. We have this character right here. This is Reno Bryce. He is a human Carabim hybrid. And we'll talk about a little bit about the Carabims here in a minute, where he can make like his arms into these sharp edges, like a war blade, if you will. The next character we're going to be talking about is another one of the Carabims, but more about that here in a second. This is Zealot. And then we have my dude right there, Cash Grifter. Now, to me, when I first saw the ad, which is also in here, by the way, of Wildcats, I thought, oh man, that guy's going to be just like Gambit. He's going to be smooth and awesome. And he wears a mask. That's badass. And then the very last character is Priscilla right here, and she will be known as Voodoo. But that's where you kind of establish the characters, but Wildcats #1 is where it kicks off. So we do meet the character of Void again, as she is about to make a leap, if you will, to the whereabouts of the gentleman that we talked a little bit about earlier, Lord Emp, and who is homeless, but she restores his memories. So he's not all he claims to be. So when she restores his memory, he does come back to this place where he gets cleaned up, and it looks like he is in charge of this group known as the WildC.A.T.S, Covert Action Teams. We see Spartan and back to the other characters, and then we meet this secret organization known as the Cabal, all led by this gentleman right here, Lord Hellspawn. Now, what is really going on is we've had this fight for years, hundreds of years. I don't want to go too much into details because the fight has been going on for so long that you're going to see some flashbacks told through these very same issues in here, where we meet the characters of the Carabims and the Daemonites. Both of them, of course, the namesakes for what will become the cherubs, the cherubs, the angels against demons, if you will. But they're both alien races. And at one point during their battle that was taking place in outer space, they both took an interest on Earth. So both Cherubim and Daemonites came to Earth. The Cherubims started populating the planet with the humans. So we have a bunch of half human, half Cherubims running around, and the Daemonites just ended up taking over people's bodies, or can mimic their bodies, and there's still this demonic force to be reckoned with. So that's what's going on. The Cherubims are fighting the Daemonites, and here on Earth, where it's been going on for a long time. So the latest incarnations of their lords is Lord Hellspawn and Lord Imp, and Imp went on to become to form a team called the Wildcats. And the Wildcats are the ones that are up against the Daemonites. By the way, this was one of the foil covers right here. Hollow foil covers. Oh, those were so cool. You're going to see other characters here in case you've read things like Gen 13 or Stormwatch or The Authority. or Team 7, because Grifter, for the most part, has a lot of ties to those characters, and so does this character of Lynch right here. So the storyline is you have Wildcats against the Daemonites, alien races, and you have some of the Wildcats that are half Daemon or half Caribbean, half human, and some of them, like Zealot, are Carabims. Lord Emp is a Caribim. Zealot is part of this warrior women. This might sound familiar to you, especially if you read something like the Wonder Woman comics. But they're known as the Coda. And the Coda are a race of warriors that were all part of the Caribim. And her ship crash landed on Earth. And this is told through a series of flashbacks. It's also told through miniseries. Now, remember when I said that the Daemonites can take over people's bodies or can mimic their bodies, especially because they don't look human, they look like demons? Well, one of the people's bodies that they want to take over as part of their plan is Dan Quell. Now, if you don't know who Dan Quell is, do a little bit of American history research. I promise he'll show up. I can't believe I just said Dan Quell is part of American history research. It makes me feel super old. But that's how far we're going back. We're going back to 1992, right? Right after Jim Lee said, "See ya, Marvel and X-Men. I'm going to do my own thing. It's going to be sort of like X-Men, but it's aliens this time around. And it's going to be a bunch of superheroes fighting aliens." And the other part of the Daemonites' plan is to take Void. They need Void. They need her body because she's the one that can teleport. So she is the team teleporter. Now, in an attempt to kidnap Dan Quell, this is where the Wildcats run into another Image title, and that is Youngblood. Rob Liefeld's Youngblood, and it is all in here. It's not a crossover. They just happen to guest star in here. And I do love the design of Hellspawn, by the way. That is one of my favorite designs. Yeah, sure, it kind of looks like something out of Ghost Rider, but I love it, man. You just look the way Jim Lee drew. Now, behind the scenes, Jim Lee during this time was having a baby. He had left X-Men. He was doing monthly titles. And then when it came to this, there was a lot of delays. And one of the reasons was because his family was growing and he had no idea how much it would change him. So there were delays, but here they are. And if you're wondering, wait a second, there's an issue that's missing. What the hell? You said that this is actually not all of it, that this is missing issue number 14. Yes, issue number 14 was during the switch of Image Creators month. So Jim Lee went over to Savage Dragon, and then Eric Larson came over to Wildcats. That issue is actually reprinted in the Savage Dragon Deluxe Edition. That issue number 14, if you want to see that Wildcats issue. It features the, what are they, Freak Force. Here's the special right here, written by Steve Gerber. And this is where they got Travis Charest. I remember when I was a kid, Providence playing a part in this. When I was a kid, I remember seeing covers by Travis Charest, especially those covers with Azrael and Robin and then the Dark Stars. And I thought to myself, man, that guy is like Jim Lee. And sure enough, I mean, he came over here to Wildstorm Studios to become the new ongoing artist on Wildcats. And his art style will evolve from this to something else. Man, and if you haven't seen his art in European comics now, oh my gosh, they are amazing. Jay Lee is drawing this right here. This is The Way of Coda. So this is the Wildcats trilogy. And Wildcats trilogy was just that 3-issue miniseries that focuses on the Coda. So characters like Zealot and her past. By the way, this is mapped wonderfully because right after issue number 1 of Coda, you get the backup story from Wildcats, Covert Action Teams, by the way, by Steve Siegel and Travis Charest, featuring the character of Voodoo and her fight against Devin there. And then we go back to the Wildcats trilogy. So I do love the fact that they took some time to think about the mapping of this. So we go back to the fight between Zealot and Dalfey, and then learning more about the Coda and how they came to Earth, and that wraps up that trilogy. And then we go back to the ongoing series. So, you know, I remember when this was coming out, we thought, oh, well, maybe Wildcats was a miniseries, kind of like Cyberforce. Nope. Jim Lee came back and decided to continue and opening it up with this amazing spread right here. Look at that. in the compendium format too. And focusing again on I love long-haired Zealot. This is now the setup for what will become the Killer Instinct crossover. And Killer Instinct was a crossover between Cyberforce and Wildcats that features the characters focusing mainly on Warblade, Ripclaw, and this redhead right here known as Misery. So it's got mind control, it's got their backup story, and more importantly, it's also got this island called Gamora. Now, if you've read, like, some of the pages of the Authority, then Gamora, that island, plays a part in there. But here you get to meet the Wildcats, or, I'm sorry, Cyberforce, in case you haven't read any of these characters. It's Striker, Ballistic, Heatwave, and Ripclaw, and Velocity, and Impact. Those are the characters that make up Cyberforce. And it is a huge fight between the Wildcats and Cyberforce, but mainly Ripclaw and Warblade fighting against each other. And manipulating everybody is this character known as Misery. And what ties she has to their background, well, you can find out for yourself. It is kind of it's like a 6-issue crossover right here with Killer Instinct, because there is a finale that wraps it up. I remember this issue right here. This is issue number 8, and this is Downtime. And you can definitely tell when Scott Williams is inking Jim Lee and when it's somebody else like Richard Bennett or John Dickinson or Rich Johnson or John Tisch. This is the, hey, let's take a break, the Downtime issue. So you have Grifter, do love his name, Cold Cash, Grifter and Zealot chilling out at a bar and picking fights, just drinking and playing pool. Both Spartan and Voodoo end up going on a cruise. I love the fact that Maul and the character of Warblade are in Soho trying to pick up chicks at an art gallery. But this is one of my favorite moments right here, because you not only have a cameo right there from these two folks, right, which kind of makes sense now that since this is printed by DC Comics these days, but you have a cameo by Clark Kent and Lois Lane. But these two folks right here, when they see Voodoo use her powers on Spartan, well, I don't want to say Scott, but he calls her, did you see that, honey? Maybe they are mute. Nope. And she's like, nope, we're on our honeymoon. And sure enough, yeah, Cyclops and Jean Grey were on their honeymoon during this time. And maybe this is a little bit of a crossover or an Easter egg. I'll just consider it a crossover, because their X-Men Wildcats issues are collected in the Absolute Edition. Not in this one here, but definitely in the Absolute Edition. This is Lord Entropy right here making his move. So we do have different Damonites playing a part through here. We have the backup stories that are collected. This is the Chris Claremont storyline that introduces us to his character, his creator-owned character, Huntsman. And this is like a 4-part issue, like, event, really, because it is the return of Chris Claremont and Jim Lee. Now, the backup stories will introduce some new characters like Soldier and Savant and Mr. Majestic. We have Tapestry here, who's the new villain during this time. And these characters, like Mr. Majestic and Soldier and Savant, will play a bigger part later on when Wildcats is split up into 2 different teams. But it was nice to see Chris Claremont and Jim Lee working together again. And Huntsman went on to also star, because he's a creator-owned character, in the pages of Cyberforce. Now, Brandon Choi does end up leaving the book, and James Robinson takes over writing duties. Now, James Robinson will be here for just a little bit. Travis Charest coming on board as the full ongoing artist. But we do have, I think, 1 or 2 more Jim Lee issues. Because the series went on all the way to issue number 50. And we are introduced to the character of Santini. The idea that Team One was set up a long time ago to build a superhero team. Because this Cherubim and Damonite war has been going on for so long. And then you start seeing connections to things like Deathblow. You start seeing connections to things like Gen 13, and Stormwatch. As a matter of fact, Stormwatch will be making an appearance here in the last few issues. There we go. We have a little bit of a hint of an appearance there of Stormwatch, and then we have a full-out fight of Stormwatch later on. And again, Travis Charest drawing these issues. Now, Jim Lee does come back for issue number 19 right here. Again, written by James Robinson. And I want to say that, oh yeah, the backup stories are done by Terry Dodson featuring the character of Savant. That it kind of leads into the Wildstorm Rising storyline right here. Travis Charest coming back for that issue. And to wrap up this compendium, we have the Team 1 Wildcats, which showcases what the original teams look like in the past. And Stormwatch, what those original teams looked like. And who is this character that looked like Spartan? Is it really Spartan, the cybernetic being, or is it somebody else? Maybe it's somebody that Spartan is based on. And what are the relationships between Savant and Mr. Majestic? There's all kinds of little goodies like that through here. And then, of course, the next compendium will have the amazing Alan Moore run, which, that is a complete different beast. In the back is where you get the Wildcat source books, 1 and 2. This is like your handbook of the Marvel Universe or your DC Who's Who. It's a breakdown of these characters, their powers. You get some early artwork in here from people like Brett Booth, who actually did issue number 0. I forgot to mention that. And Jeffrey Scott Campbell, or just Jeff Campbell during this time. But you do get the breakdown of the characters, their first appearance, their powers, the buildings, the weapons, and a little bit of the animated Wildcats, because that's something I forgot about. This right here is the ad that I remember seeing. And yeah, I was like, oh, that guy's going to be like Gambit, that's going to be like Psylocke. You got your Cyclops character. You've got maybe your Jubilee character, your Rogue character. Yeah, I was a little off. So you have the Wildcats. This, I think, is the acetate cover right here for the Ace edition. And this is the Wizard covers, the trade paperback cover that came with issue number 0, the special 1 pinup, or pinups, rather, including the Travis Charest and inked by Scott Williams right here, and then Cam Smith, and the pinups all the way back here, and the poster. So this is a little bit different than the Absolute Edition, but I do want to compare it to the Absolute Edition, and here's what's left is the biographies. Now, one thing you probably noticed as I was flipping through these pages, this is definitely one of those books that even though they give you a wonderful table of contents right here, telling you where you're going to find each of these stories and what page you're going to find them, yeah, this book right here, no page numbers. So the best advice I can give you is get a bookmark. Alright, so I did want to make a little comparison. I know this doesn't start with issue number 0, it goes right into issue number 1. And the size obviously is a big difference, right? You've got the size over here of Wildcat's Compendium with this size, but also the paper stock. We're looking at thick glossy paper for the Absolute Edition. And actually it is glossy paper, it's not matte or it's not that satin paper. This really feels like glossy paper stock. But let's go ahead and start this right here to see just what the colors look like compared to the colors over here. So because they're using different paper stock, it does seem like the colors are a little bit lighter, looking just a little bit faded out. But honestly, without looking at this, I wouldn't have been able to tell a difference. And I'm not kidding. It's just the way that this looks, and sorry, a few pages behind compared to this. And honestly, yeah, if you have the single issues, this is the way you're going to remember them, because this is the closest to the trim size. Now, of course, the way it lays over, this is sewn binding, and we talked about the glued binding, so you do have some gutter loss right there. But that's it. That's what I wanted to talk about really quick. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this compendium, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget, the CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this compendium. Let me know in the comments down below if you plan on picking it up, if you already have it in absolute format, if you're hoping one day we get another absolute, or we get another omnibus edition, or another compendium, or we get it in omnibus format. I would love to know all those comments down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. Everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Oh, wait, don't go nowhere. What other Wildstorm era do you want to see collected in compendium format? That's the question. Gen 13, Backlash, those type of stories. Team X, the Team 7 book. Yeah, that would be cool. Anyway, if you have any questions, leave them down below. Smash that like button on the way out. Check us out on Patreon and Spreadshop. Amazing ways to support the channel. Thank you everyone for watching. Stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.